Hello, my sweet friends. It is I, Dave Makes Noises, the Phineas of Dungeons & Dragons Storytime on YouTube. Just a quick reminder to please check out our official subreddit, r/MrRipper, if you've got a story you'd like us to share on the channel. Now I ask you, D&D Players of Reddit, what are your best I'm the bad guy stories in D&D? Part 1.
Sometimes ideals clash, sometimes parties don't mesh, and sometimes something from your past makes you swap sides. Whatever the reason, you have now joined the bad guys and continue to play the character in opposition to the main party. So I ask you, D&D Players of Reddit, what are your favorite stories of when you switched sides? Funny you should ask this. I DM a homebrew game called Trouble in Talos 2, Arcane Boogaloo, and last session we lost our life cleric Aasimar, Eranos. He was killed and, due to exposure to an infernal artifact, was sent to the 9 hells to stand trial after death. Now, a little backstory on this party. In the beginning, there were 3. They all TPK'd in the second session, so I had a trial in the 9 hells for them. They did some clever investigation, lawyered their way into another lease on life, and are currently seeking 6 runestones on behalf of the Grand Judge of Dis. They returned to life in front of the eyes of Eranos, a wandering cleric, who took this as a sign from his god that he has to protect this party. So it's after death, his soul is being sheared by the raging winds of Avernus, and the devil tasked with bringing him to the court is called Krazthul. This devil is also the one who tricked the original 3 into seeking the runestones, and is actively working against the Grand Judge of Dis to get the stones for himself. Anyway, I spent a great deal of time explaining to Eranos his journey through the river Styx, across the arid mesas and rocky terrain of the deserts, until he's picked up by Krazthul. The player is playing this PC really interestingly, calls out to his god and gets no response. Feeling abandoned, shattered, overall down, he eagerly accepts the call to action from Krazthul, and without reading anything, signs his life away. Now, his mission will be to return to the material plane, continue masquerading as a life cleric, and capture the runestones at the opportune moment. He's also been driven insane by his time in hell, and chooses to worship Krazthul, a fairly minor devil, as his new god. As such, he is now a death cleric, and has changed from Protector Aasimar to Fallen Aasimar. None of the other players are aware of what happened to Eranos other than his death, so next session, we'll reintroduce him, and the subtle chaos will commence. When even the life clerics can fall, what hope is there for mere mortals? I was playing an Oath of the Ancients paladin. The rest of our party was pretty chaotic. They caused a lot of ruckus wherever we went. At one point, they caused so many problems that a small band of highly skilled assassins was sent to remove our party from this world. Who sent them? I did, because in the session before, the rest of the party purchased a large section of land from a local lord, and decided they were going to remove an entire forest, that we already found ancient spirits of earth and life. I protested, but had to resort to dirty methods when I was told to get over it. Our party was jumped on the road. I started the battle pretending to be on my party side, until I smote our fighter in the back with a max damage crit. As our DM put it, you told the wrong tree hugger to shoo. So, this wasn't my character, but a buddy of mine created a character who wanted to try out Fighter, but sadly got the worst luck of die rolls and rolled completely average stats. The DM allowed for him to add or subtract these die rolls to help make the character a bit more interesting in terms of stats. Well, Lenny ended up with good physical and charisma stats, but had a 4 in both intelligence and wisdom. He created a lovable, dumb-witted banner fighter who held a banner from a war that he fought in who would misinterpret a lot of the goings-on around him. Well, early in the campaign, when we were going to investigate an encampment of baddies, we crossed over a hill, which we saw a group of bandits. My character wanted to go around them and just continue on past, and a lot of the party was planning on following me. But Lenny smelled food and went forward towards the open flame and cooking smell. Ended up befriending a dumb orc, who in turn persuaded him that they have a lot of food and he should go with them. Since the party just met, we were less inclined to help each other, along with my friend not enjoying playing the character or class. I play a rogue goblin in the desert. The party gets attacked by jackals in an oasis full of NPCs. The party fights back. We win the battle, but many more were attacked too, and only a small percentage survives. As the rest of the party mourns the innocent lives lost, I rob the bodies. What are they gonna do? They're dead. Killed a friendly goblin chef because he was acting suspiciously and refused to say what was in his pies. The DM and 2 out of 3 other players got pissed off, and my alignment was changed from lawful neutral to lawful evil. This was a homebrew AD&D game, where I was a psionicist that had somehow drawn the ire of a dwarf fighter in the party. The dwarf, Stumpy, cringe, was being played by a girl, and was a caricature of gruff dwarven testosterone poisoning, offending myself and the other 2 men at our table of 6 players, and making the other female players uncomfortable on an almost nightly basis. She played Stumpy as a constant stream of insults, dick jokes, and cringy come-ons. Stumpy eventually hit my psionicist so hard he was nearly killed as a matter of bullying over loot. One day the party got sick, and this led to armor being soiled. So our next camp was a combining who was on watch, who was bathing, and who was resting. Still healing from the bullying punch, I was on watch while Stumpy was out of armor and bathing upstream from the 2 female characters in the party. About this time, we all took a smoke break, a habit I do not miss. As we stood outside, I struck up a conversation with everyone and guided it towards whether everyone agreed men see our genitals as a separate entity from ourselves or just as a part of ourselves, considering how we speak of them and regard them as more of a possession. Our odd little conversation led to agreement that a dick is sort of both, leaning more towards it being an object external to the self. I had secured the agreement I was looking for. I then pulled the DM aside and told him what I'd like to do when we got back, and he just nodded, with a huge grin on his face. When we got back to the table, I first established contact and a mind link with Stumpy, connecting minds, and Stumpy failed to detect the link. Then, I used repugnance across that link, from the complete psionicist. With this power, a psionicist makes something, a particular person, place, or object, completely repugnant to another character. That character is overwhelmed with loathing for the thing, and he will seek to destroy it as completely and quickly as possible. Stumpy now hated his own junk so much that he had to try and destroy it. Now, without getting into how power scores and all that work in AD&D, the short story is that I intended to have Stumpy punch himself in the danglies, but he critically failed all saves, and instead tried to rip off the whole assembly. The result was testicular torsion, blacking out, and drifting downriver to where the women fished Stumpy out of the water as he drifted by, unconscious, with unreasonable swelling in places. He also didn't know why he did it, which pissed the player off because the DM wouldn't allow his player to retaliate. Sorry, not sorry. The DM just looked at me and said, "You know your alignment isn't good anymore, right?"
I'm good with that. Worth.
Not only did the party lack what we needed to restore the injury, but Stumpy later died due to a penalty in movement speed while we were fleeing an encounter because he couldn't quite run a marathon with a softball-sized nut. Meanwhile, while there was a little suspicion, nobody could know it was all my doing, and I might do something like that again. My bad guy story is my party had 2 Goliaths in it, and I, as the half-orc cleric alongside a normal human, came into a town that was completely destroyed. We had found the town had held up inside their town hall. Well, I sent the human to knock on the door to see if we can get the elder to come out. They didn't, because fuck you, that's why. So I sent the Goliaths to go and rip the door from its hinges in the wall. They tore it off, and I, the half-orc, then ordered all of them to get in a line. When I pulled my mimic sorting hat named Greg. Heh, nice. Greg being manned by the DM. I placed Greg onto each of the towngoers' heads and waited for a result. The DM would tell me whether Greg liked them or didn't. If they didn't, my Goliaths got to turn them into meat puppets, excluding the brain. Greg liked brains, and the ones he liked we tied to the caravan as mobile backstory banks. The end. Hello, my sweet little cosmic cream puffs, and thank you for allowing the dough of your infinite consciousness to rise in this direction, and for the entire duration of the video, for that matter. Just wanted to remind you to please join our subreddit, r/MrRipper, if you have a story to share with us. But, as always, if you are a bad guy, please share how in the comments below this video. If you're a DM or a player looking for a group, you may have some luck in Mr. Ripper's Group Finder Discord server. You may even see me pop up in there to say hi at some point. If you are curious about what kinds of noises I make, you're welcome to find some of them on my website, www.davemakesnoises.com, or my Instagram and or TikTok. That's right, Dave Makes Noises. Real creative, Dave. Real creative. Anyways, I want you to take a deep breath and feel the immense rippling energy of beingness as you recognize for a moment the fact that you are a unique node of infinite divinity manifested in a honey-baked ham that can push air and nutrients through it for like 80 years or so, which can be a pretty cool experience if you let it be. If you'd like to support the channel, you can buy one very comfy sweater from our merch store below. Thanks again for watching. Please sub for Nat 20s. You are loved, and we will see you next time.